If Social Security gets cut in 2032, not every state loses the same amount. Some retirees would lose over $550 a month. Others only lose $459. Some states would see nearly a quarter of their entire population directly hit. Others would feel it more through their local economy than their own check. A new government-backed analysis just mapped this out, state by state, for the first time. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly where your state ranks, and more importantly, what that number actually means for your retirement plan. This isn't fear content. It's the specific numbers from official sources that most videos on this topic never actually show you. Let's get into it. Quick recap, because you need this to understand the rankings. In June 2026, the Social Security Trustees confirmed that the Retirement Trust Fund is projected to run dry in the fourth quarter of 2032, one quarter sooner than last year's estimate. Once that happens, the law does not allow the program to pay out more than it collects. Incoming payroll taxes would only cover a portion of scheduled benefits, which works out to an automatic cut of around 22 to 24% for every single retiree nationwide. Here's the part almost nobody breaks down. A 24% cut sounds identical everywhere. It isn't, because average benefit amounts differ by state, because the share of each state's population that depends on Social Security differs, and because local economies rely on that money differently. The real-world impact varies enormously depending on where you live. A nonpartisan fiscal watchdog recently ran the numbers for every state using this exact scenario. Let's go through what they found, using 3 different ways to measure hit hardest, because each one tells you something different about your own risk. Ranking 1. Which states lose the most money per person per month? This is the most direct number. How many actual dollars disappear from the average retiree's check every month if the cut happens today? Nationally, the average reduction works out to about $500 a month, which is more than what a typical retired household spends on groceries in a month. But some states are hit noticeably harder in raw dollars. The states facing the largest average monthly cuts are concentrated in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic: Connecticut, New Jersey, New Hampshire, Maryland, and Delaware, with average reductions ranging from roughly $540 to $556 a month. Why these states specifically? Higher average earnings during working years translate into higher benefit checks, and a percentage cut on a bigger check means more dollars lost. On the other end, states range down to around $459 a month at the lower end. Still a serious hit, just a smaller dollar figure. Ranking 2. Which states have the largest share of their population directly affected? This is arguably the more personal number because it tells you how common this situation is in your own community, your neighbors, your church, your family. Nationally, about 1 in 5 Americans, roughly 60 million people, would be directly affected by a cut this size. But that share isn't even across the country. In 47 states, more than 15% of the population would feel this directly. The states where the largest share of residents depend on Social Security, and would therefore be hit hardest by a cut, include Maine, at just under 23% of its population, West Virginia at over 22%, Vermont at 22%, and Delaware, Montana, and New Hampshire each around 21%. Notice something about this group. These tend to be states with older populations and, in several cases, lower average incomes, which makes households more dependent on that monthly check rather than other income sources. Ranking 3. Which states would feel it most in their local economy? This third lens matters even if you personally don't collect Social Security yet, because it shows how a cut ripples through entire communities. Local stores, pharmacies, service jobs that depend on retirees spending that monthly income. Measured against the size of each state's economy, the hardest hit states include West Virginia, Mississippi, and Vermont, each losing benefit income equaled nearly 2% of their state's GDP. South Carolina and Maine follow closely behind. In 40 states total, the economic hit would exceed 1% of state GDP, which, for context, is a meaningful drag on local spending power in communities that are often already economically vulnerable. And if we look at raw total dollars lost rather than percentages, the biggest states carry the biggest numbers simply due to population size. California would see about $33 billion in reduced benefits, Florida around $27 billion, Texas about $24 billion, followed by New York and Pennsylvania. So what does this actually mean for you? 3 quick takeaways, regardless of which state you're in. First, no state escapes this. Whether you're looking at dollars, population share, or economic impact, every single state shows up somewhere on these lists. This isn't a regional problem. It's a national one with regional intensity. Second, if you live in one of the states with a higher population share affected, states like Maine, West Virginia, Vermont, Delaware, Montana, or New Hampshire, you're statistically more likely to be personally impacted and more likely to know several other people in your community facing the same situation. That's worth factoring into how you talk about this with family and plan financially as a household. Third, and most important, these numbers describe what happens if nothing changes between now and 2032. Congress still has time to act, just as it did back in 1983 during a very similar crisis. But your personal plan should be built assuming a reduced benefit is possible, not assuming a rescue is guaranteed. So here's what to actually do with this information, no matter which state you call home. Go check the official numbers for yourself. The Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget published an interactive map with every state's specific figures. Search CRFB No State Spared, and you'll find it directly. Look up your own state's numbers in the description below. Then, take the same 3 steps I always recommend on this channel. Review your Social Security earnings record for errors on the official government site. Calculate your benefit at 3 different claiming ages, so you know your real numbers, and build your retirement budget using a conservative estimate, around 75 to 80% of your current projected benefit, for anything expected after 2032. State-level averages are useful for understanding the bigger picture. Your household budget should always be based on your own specific numbers. Let's bring this together. A cut to Social Security in 2032 wouldn't hit every state the same way. Whether you measure it in dollars per check, share of the population affected, or impact on the local economy, some states absorb a noticeably bigger hit than others, but genuinely, no state comes out unaffected. If you found out your state and you weren't expecting that number, that's exactly why videos like this matter more than the headlines that just say, "Cuts are coming." If this helped you see the full picture, hit subscribe. Every week we go beyond the headlines on Social Security, Medicare, and retirement planning for Americans 50 and older, always sourced from official reports, never from guesswork. And tell me in the comments, which state are you in and did the number surprise you? I read every comment, and your state might just shape next week's video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.